It is the day that so many of you have been waiting for. I am breaking down the victor's vote today in Mockingjay, using the book to back up my thoughts, and shout out to Panem Propaganda for this amazing collage. So here's how it goes. Katniss walks in, she kind of looks around and is like, what are we doing here? I thought I was going to get prepped to go kill Snow. And everyone says, well, it looks like a meeting of the victors. Joanna and Anabaria, is that how I say her name? Joanna and the sharp tooth chick, they start fighting. Basically, Joanna's threatening to kill her, and Coin walks in. So Coin walks in and says she's protected under the Mockingjay deal. Katniss fulfilled her side of the bargain, and now Coin is going to publicly excuse everyone who is a victor for anything that would have been considered treasonous while they were held in the Capitol. Coin sits down and says, I've come here today to ask you all a very important question. Basically, there's been a lot of trials. A lot of people are going to be executed in the coming months, but it doesn't seem to be satiating the desire that the district citizens have for blood. The district people have been treated like crap for so long that ultimately they just don't feel that that's enough. So she comes up with a proposition. What has been proposed is that in lieu of eliminating the entire capital population, we have a final symbolic Hunger Games, using the children directly related to those who held the most power. I mean, like, what? Everyone mirrors my sentiments, and she says, we hold another Hunger Games using capital children, says Coin. And then she hits them with the craziest line. She says that she's not joking, and I should also tell you that if we do hold the games, it will be known that it was done with your approval, although the individual breakdown of your votes will be kept secret for your own security. And Haymitch says, was this Plutarch's idea? Such an interesting question coming from Haymitch. That question is a lot more interesting after you read Sunrise on the Reaping. It makes you wonder how much Haymitch really realizes that Plutarch is some sort of puppeteer this entire time. But Coin says, nope, it was my idea. Before Katniss ever elaborates on her opinion, the other victors start weighing in. Our sweet, wonderful carb boy Peeta, of course, comes out and says, no, this is wrong. And that's so important. Peeta, after he was hijacked by the Capitol, is having these splits in his reality. Even he can discern that this is the improper thing to do. While he's angry, he doesn't hold it against the people of the Capitol because he understands that the Capitol citizens aren't to blame here. Joanna immediately starts arguing the opposite side. She says, why can't we have one? I hear Snow even has a granddaughter. Again, this is where readers are really left to fill in what the heck happened to Joanna and why is she voting like this? I love her. I'm not mad at her. I don't know that I could forgive in this situation, so whatever. I think this is really where she starts to play into fan theory here. So she says, so do I let them have a taste of their own medicine. And people tend to wonder, what did they do to her that made her want to sharpen her teeth, that caused her to vote like this? But anyway, remember, up to this point, we still don't have Katniss's perspective. She's sitting just taking in what's happening around her and sort of cataloging this incident. So Annie steps forth and says that she would vote no. And then she says, of course, I would love to vote for Finnick as well. And Finnick would vote no. And after all they did to Finnick Odair, I mean, what? Like, if he would vote no, that really should make you reconsider, but okay. Joanna steps back in. She says, well, Finnick's not here to vote, and it's the Capitol's fault. It's Snow's fault. And she's trying to win Annie over to her perspective. Since we don't know the rest of the character's backstory, I'm going to go out on a ledge here and say, just based off what we know from Sunrise and the Reaping, this is the most interesting vote. He comes forth and has pretty much any reason that you could think of to want to vote for the Capitol children to be punished. I mean, me personally, maybe I'm petty, but I would definitely want someone to pay for what happened to my child. But Beatty votes no. He says that no, it would set a bad precedent. We have to stop viewing one another as enemies. That's brilliant advice. And then he says, at this point, unity is essential for our survival. No. So Beatty is bringing back up the human population aspect because he's very scientific in his thoughts. So Coin says, we're down to Katniss and Haymitch. And this is the most important paragraph to understanding what's going on in Katniss's head. She says, was it like this then? 75 years ago, did a group of people sit around and cast their votes on initiating the Hunger Games? Was there dissent? Did someone make a case for mercy that was beaten down by the calls for the deaths of the district's children? The scent of Snow's rose curls up into my nose, down into my throat, squeezing it tight with despair. All those people I loved, dead. And we are discussing the next Hunger Games in an attempt to avoid wasting life? Nothing has changed. Nothing will ever change now. So in my opinion, she sees it. She sees who Coin is, she sees what this is about, and she realizes that she is no better than Snow. She realizes that backing Alma Coin is going to make the history repeat itself. Remember, Katniss has been toying with the idea that Coin was the person who let off those bombs. Snow releases that tidbit to her, and while we shouldn't trust him, he's a terrible person, he does say that we agreed to never lie to each other. She realizes that Beatty and Gale were the ones working this up. She's seen this type of trap before. She knows, thanks to Boggs, that the Capitol didn't have the hovercraft abilities that would have allowed for those bombs to be set off. Those were driven by 13 rebels. The hovercrafts were led in with a capital seal on them to disperse of those bombs. She makes a good connection saying that ultimately Snow would have escaped if he had a way out. So next, Katniss says, I weigh my options carefully, think everything through, keeping my eyes on the rose. I think that rose is hugely important. She's seeing the connection. She's making the comparison. She's like, you're no better than Snow. You are just like Papa. And then she says a line that I think is so telling. She says, I vote yes for Prim. And I think that this is taken out of context often. I think people think that she's doing it out of a vengefulness. Like, well, Snow killed my sister, so now I hope his granddaughter dies. That's not how I take this. And hey, I could be wrong. But I personally feel as if Katniss is saying for Prim and directing it at Coin. She has to vote yes here so that Coin thinks that she has finally won over this very hard to break, stubborn, headstrong girl. If she bucks against it now, Coin will know that she'll never win her over. Killing Prim was the last straw. It was the thing to break Katniss and get her to her side. And she needs Katniss, the face of the rebellion, if she's going to move forward as president in this country. Katniss is smart, and I personally feel her saying this is like a little nod. Yes, I will vote for this. Really, no, she won't. She's setting the plan up, and she's thinking to the future. When she says for Prim, in my mind, it's like a smirk. She's saying that, but she knows. It's almost as if she's telling Coin that she is privy to what actually happened that day. Remember, Katniss has been putting this together. She realizes that Coin and Plutarch have probably had to sign off on letting her underage sister go to the front lines, somewhere that they were going to televise this. This was a planned execution. Our sweet, wonderful Peeta, he hammers the table. Throws atrocities at Haymitch. They look to Haymitch because Haymitch is the final vote. And Haymitch, this man who promised the love of his life that he would end the reapings, that the sun would not rise again, he turns to Katniss and he weighs his options in this moment. We do not get Haymitch's perspective of this scene because the book is told through Katniss's perspective, but the way that she alludes to what is going on is huge here. Katniss, in her brief way of speaking, gives us a major foreshadowing hint, if you will, of what is going on between her and Haymitch. It is known throughout the text, even reiterated in the first Hunger Games book, but she and Haymitch have a unique way of understanding each other. Now that we have Sunrise and the Reaping, we know that that could be for a number of reasons. That one, he's been in her shoes. That two, he and her are very similar. That three, his best friend was her father. There's a lot going on here. But ultimately, she and Haymitch have a way of communicating where they don't really even have to speak to each other. So she says that she can feel Haymitch watching me. This is the moment then when we find out exactly just how alike we are and how much he truly understands me. So she is hinting at what is about to happen. And they're almost having this non-verbal communication, and he is watching her as if he's piecing together what's going on in his head as well. And the amount of trust that Haymitch had to have in this girl who is Covey descendant, who is the distant cousin of his beloved, this girl who looked like his sweetheart, Luella, this girl who was his best friend's daughter. I mean, is crazy, but the amount of trust he had to have in Katniss in order to say this next line fills me with both pride and devastates me. I'm with the Mockingjay. Haymitch could have said, I'm with Katniss. He also could have said, whatever you want, sweetheart. Instead, he chose to say, I am with the Mockingjay. Labels are a huge part of Mockingjay, the book. Katniss is called everything from Victor to Soldier, Mockingjay. The way that Haymitch chooses to call her the Mockingjay in that moment tells us that Haymitch knows exactly what she's thinking. Coin is to blame. There's something afoot here, and he's siding with her on purpose because he trusts her. So Coin says, excellent, that carries the vote. Now we really must take our places for the execution. As Coin passes Katniss, She holds up the glass with the rose and says, "Can you see that Snow's wearing this just over his heart?" And Coin smiles, "Of course, and I'll make sure he knows about the games." So Coin thinks she's won, but Katniss is handing her this rose. I love it because it's almost like a kiss of death, right? Snow delivers roses to people and it's never a good thing, but Katniss is the one delivering this rose. And for Coin to smile, Coin thinks she's gotten away with this. She thinks, good, I finally got this girl on my side. And that's just not the case. I think this scene could be really confusing if you only ever watched the movies, but I personally feel that it is in that moment where she says that nothing has changed, nothing will ever change. She weighs her options carefully, thinks everything through, keeps her eyes on the rose. That's when Katniss is figuring it all out.